Thank you so much, Kristen. Um, the work that UNICEF's directly with cities and in cities is also important. And we worked together at the World Urban Forum with your colleague that was developing the child-friendly cities framework. And it's really important here to think about the multi-generational solidarity that develops through inclusion and accessibility, specifically as we think about accessible cities, allowing all of us to be able to contribute our talents and benefit from what the city has to offer. We had two other participants that have given me the word to share with you, and because we're a little bit short on time, I'll share two of the perspectives from two other partners. One of the very important partners, a dear friend of Amelia and I, within the GAP, which is the General Assembly of Partners, and that is Professor Jeannie Birch at the University of Pennsylvania, who serves as the president of the GAP. And she really wants to stress the importance of multi-stakeholder partnerships around inclusion and accessibility. So as we think about the multidimensional nature of the pandemic, understand that there's multiple lifestyles, preferences, and contexts within which different communities are experiencing the pandemic. And the only way to create an inclusive pandemic response is to look at the intersections of all of these major stakeholder groups, whether it's women with disabilities, children with disabilities, older persons and their impact, as well as other groups. How are parliamentarians? How is the private sector thinking about ways of incorporating and eliminating barriers? And ultimately thinking about multi-stakeholder partnerships, like we're building with UCLG and UN Habitat, and especially with the Office of the UN Special Envoy on Disability, Maria Soledad Cisternas, is really helping us do that, a platform to exchange learning and build a community that is able to create those policies and programs. The other partner that we have is a private sector, and we've been working closely with several private sector leaders, including, for example, that with Huawei, the telecommunications company, that will be sponsoring the development of a video and a social media campaign on Cities for All. So our story about empowering cities and our work with UN Habitat, with Maimuna, with Amelia will be featured in this short video that'll be launched in June to really elevate the visibility of our collective efforts. Well, those were the interventions for this part of the webinar on radical inclusion and building multi-stakeholder partnerships. But if you permit me, Amelia, we're now coming towards the end of our webinar, and I want to be able to share with our joint audience some of the things we have planned for the next year. Does that sound good, Amelia?
Yeah, absolutely, Victoria. We will do the wrap up in a moment. I think it would be good for you to start with with the roadmap. And I then would like to give the floor to the Secretary General of Metropolis, who is also very committed to this topic and hopefully will help us expand the approach among the biggest cities of the world. So the floor is yours, Victor.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I will share my screen now to provide a little bit more context as to how our efforts over the last few months have brought us to where we are today, and really the context that allows us to really leverage the unique capabilities and experiences. Again, a lot of this is really about building back better And this joint effort to bring the webinar series on equity and access to the UCLG community, to the live learning series, in partnership with you and Habitat of Metropolis is very valuable. But the lessons that we're going to share today are out of 9 weeks of a network that we've developed with the UN Special Envoy on Disability under her leadership, as well as with support from the German development agencies and the GIZ and BMZ and different knowledge partners like the University of California, Berkeley, Columbia University, and other sponsors as well, Disability Inclusive Accessible Development Network. So as you can see, this is unprecedented in terms of how many new relationships are forming to really shape this great transformation. And I call it a great transformation because I myself, as an urban planner, as an urban scholar, and as a professor in the field of urban planning, see this ultimately as an urban transformation. I serve on the UN committee that helped draft the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. And that document guides our knowledge and our understanding of how local efforts should incorporate these perspectives and ensure human rights. With COVID, with over 4 to 5 million confirmed cases and hundreds of thousands of deaths, has really impacted people with disabilities in countless ways. And we heard that from our distinguished panelists. But really thinking about how our network of signatory cities, which are nearing almost 20 signatory cities, of which Helsinki signed and Barcelona signed, and New York, Sao Paulo, Abu Dhabi, are looking at about their own strategies and looking about their own impact that they can have in their communities, and thinking how we can add value to those discussions. So the agenda for our network and our work together with you, Amelia, is to really ensure that we have continued advocacy and engagement and sharing the lived experience and the emerging issues within this continued dialogue. And then we really are thinking about network of networks and strengthening our coordination among different stakeholders, like with the World Bank, to overcome these data deserts and ultimately understand what we've heard over 9 weeks of discussions, understand what are the actionable responses. To address that, we have two new things that we'll be launching, and we'll be launching together with other partners over the next few weeks. One is, as you heard, this global survey on inclusive pandemic response that really targets cities and local governments. And we'll have the link here in the chat. And we'll also be sharing this through a press release tomorrow on the International Day of Accessibility Awareness. The Global Accessibility Awareness Day, as well as we're launching open documents to be co-created with cities on actionable recommendations for inclusive pandemic response. The open document will be available for input. So those are the ways that we want to address the data gap, the network of networks to address the knowledge gap, and create a knowledge map, mapping out all the resources and hosting that on a centralized knowledge platform, and then providing these declared actions. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Ultimately, the equity and access webinar series that we're now concluding is an important part of the multi-stage project of Cities for All. And that, again, launched with the Global Compact, this idea of stimulating and formulating and implementing evidence-based policies to mainstream disability and inclusive urban development. With this particular year, thematically focusing on the pandemic. So we completed phase 1, which is the webinars and agenda setting, and we're now going to phase 2 on policy formulation and data gathering. That's going to lead us to phase 3 down below, where we'll be able to collaboratively develop a train-the-trainer model, as well as tools and other guidance that cities can take to really empower them to know what to do and to have confidence that their policies and programs are fostering more access and inclusion. And I think for that, it's really important that we realize that these declared actions is about coming together and about ensuring that local governments know what to do. And that's why I'm so proud of the leadership that Maria Sarnazzi-Sternas, the UN Special Envoy on disability accessibility, has made, and the joint declaration, the note that we've published together and hosted with the UN to sort of ensure that there's a focus on local pandemic response. I think, some of the interesting things, I'm not going to go into the details, but the survey has already had over 250 respondents. And we're seeing a good representation of insights on different areas of non-discrimination and how cities are looking at or agree or disagree with various statements. Most people feel that people with disabilities are facing some discrimination in local COVID-19 pandemic responses. And that's why it's so exciting to hear New York set up very specific initiatives to ensure that you can report some of these challenges. But ultimately, as our opening speaker said, this is really a long-term transformation and being very frank about what we can do well and what we need to do better. And hearing that the efforts that we're undertaking, whether it's in Abu Dhabi under the Abu Dhabi Disability Strategy, under Bushra Al-Mullah, or in Sao Paulo under SID, or in New York under Commissioner Polisi, is really about sharing those experiences and ultimately knowing that those are going to be the ways that we can make more progress together. So I want to just bring this to the screen. The learning groups that we've created, you can take a photo of this and join.
To give you one more minute, Victor.
Sure. These are the learning groups that we have, Amelia, for city partners to join efforts and share experiences in WhatsApp to learn about how to make more progress. And we'll share this with all of our colleagues in terms of saying that even though we're closing the webinar series, the pandemic response, the community, and the dialogue is going to continue. I'm going to give the word now to the special envoy that'll just speak and give us some closing remarks. Pass it back to you. The floor is yours, Maria Soledad.
It's okay. Do you listen to me?
Yes, the floor is yours.
Yes. Yes. First, I think that in the spirit of the justice, for me, it's very important to recognize the great initiative of World Enable with the leadership of Victor Pineda. And I think that our experience in the web seminar, this web seminar and the series seminars are very, very important. On the other hand, the coordination of the Net Cities for All is very relevant because from this network, we can get genuine inputs to give to local governments and unit cities and local government organizations, because come from the civil society of persons with disabilities directly And this is the spirit of CRPD, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. I think that this is a great value for this work. And finally, I think that it is very important to count with all persons, the partners now, and other friends in the progress for cities for all, because I think that is the real real advantage, real progress now and forever for the future in 21st century. Thank you very much. And the joint statement you will find in the website of United Nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Special Envoy, for those words and our commitment to continue that that partnership and to also make the joint statement broadly known. Octavi De la Varga, Secretary General of Metropolis, some wrap-up remarks from the other big partner of this series.
Okay, thank you, Emilia, and good afternoon to everybody from Barcelona. I'll try to be very brief because I know it's been a long session, very, very interesting. And I think throughout all the learning, live learning experiences that we have had so far, Emilia, so that all the sessions at the end of the day were about rights. But I think especially today, we're really talking about rights and rights, equity, and freedom more than in the previous one. And it's clear what's coming from all the participants that, of course, if we want equity, we need access. Equity without access is not equity. They go hand by hand. And that's been highlighted pretty clear in different way by all the speakers. I think this pandemic, and from what I have heard, has confronted us to, I think there's a paradox, apparently, because on the one hand, in certain cities, all these people, all the people with disabilities and older people, in somehow, they have gone invisible because of the lockdown. But at the same time, many people are discovering that their neighbors had some kinds of disabilities. And they're discovering that they have old people living next door that they didn't aware of. So maybe here this is also an opportunity to discover who we have around. And also to discover, we're discovering as well. Well, I think all the people here, we knew it, but the wider spectrum of people, they're discovering that, well, people with disabilities is not a homogeneous group. It's a heterogeneous group. And sometimes we forget about that when we're making policies and delivering services. And that's I think one of the issues we have discovered with the pandemic is that our services were not ready. They were not up. We thought even in the most inclusive cities, we thought we were ready to include all people, and we have realized that no, because we were talking, and there were many examples, no, when talking issues about accessing to food, accessing to drugs, accessing to public services, mobility. I mean, those who had been in more disadvantaged situation has been people with disabilities and older people. And we need, and maybe that's an opportunity to rethink the way we are making policies and the way we are delivering public services to all citizens to ensure that no one is left behind. I think as well that it's an opportunity as well, some people said as well, that for a transformation in the way we have planned our cities and in the way we want to plan our cities. There are issues related to access, as I said before, access to public services, but there are issues about public space, how we are going to develop, how do we want to develop public space, which is accessible to everybody. Mobility, we are already talking a lot about changes in mobility and what are going to be the needs then in these new mobility patterns, and are we going to develop, take into account the needs of all people with disabilities in our cities? And I think this is something that I don't think many people are already thinking about it in a way, with a wider perspective. And as well, other issues like housing. I mean, we have discovered as well that maybe not everybody has adequate housing, and especially people with disabilities, they are not adapted. And then when they have to spend a lot of time inside the house, that this is a problem. So I think that's it. So I'm going back to this paradox. On the one hand, in certain areas, people with disabilities maybe it could have become more invisible because of the lockdown, but at the same time, at least it's showing all the contradictions of the system that we had before, and it's showing us maybe some of the changes that we need to introduce in the way, as I said, we plan the city, we build public policies, and in the way that we deliver public services. Thank you, Emilia, and thank you to all.
Thank you very much, Octavi. Well, thank you, Victor. You continue to be our guru, and you have pulled together a very impressive set of partners. My trust is that with that set of partners, we will be able to really make a big difference in how local and regional governments around the world are understanding accessibility, which is a lot about what Octavi was sharing with us. It's a lot about rights, but it's also a lot about service provision. And I just want to quote some of the reflections that have been going on in the chat. A lot of the dramatic experiences that Silvia Corriat has been sharing from Buenos Aires about access to water and the impact for the disabled are related to the fact that we underestimate what some of the service provision outside of health are doing for our health services. And we need to change the conversation on that. And I fully agree with Shuti Xiao, who says that we need to keep learning and we need to keep sharing. And on that note, I would say, see you all soon, see you next time, but let us keep working together. Please do share those WhatsApp for Latin America that people are requesting. Let us keep at it. Please be healthy, keep healthy, keep calm, and keep creative. Victor, take care.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you.
The team was amazing from UCLG and the team from World Enable that bring us all together.
Thank you. This is Walter from Uganda. I'm very grateful for this important meeting. We'll see
Thank
you
you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you,
Thanks,
Federico.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, UCLG.